Some people don't really like writing code, but it is important to be able to read code and understand what that code is doing, at least at a high level. If you're going to be looking at code to find vulnerabilities, you're going to have to understand that at a very deep level. There are some cybersecurity experts who hate writing code, but they can read code and figure out what's going on and maybe find ways to exploit that code. So here's an example. We'll take a look at this example, just reading source code. Here is some code that I wrote. It's not perfect code, but I don't tell you what it does. I want you to read this code and tell me what it does. Before me spoiling everything, I will show you if this was brand new code to me, here's how I would dissect it. There is some syntax highlighting here, which is okay. I could also throw this code into a new file. I'll just call it readit.py. It doesn't matter what you call it. I could paste that code in there. Let's see, did I actually copy it to my clipboard? I'll double check. Right click, copy, and I will right click, paste. So maybe this is some syntax that's more familiar to me. I might not run this code, especially if I'm not sure what it's doing. I don't want this code to cause any problems on my computer. But what is this requests? Import request could not be resolved. That's interesting. Report missing module. Okay, so if I look at this code and just kind of go line by line, I'm importing something. I'm not sure what this requests is, so I might have to search Google for it. I see I've got a settings variable being declared, and I see the curly brace, and I see key value pairs separated by that colon character, so I know that's a dictionary variable. So I've got two kinds of messages. I've got a success message and I've got a failure message. Okay, good enough. I'm going to go on. Then a function is being defined. The function is named check connectivity. It's taking an input called sites. So what kind of variable is sites? I'm not sure yet at this line of code. I see a for loop though, so I'm going to loop through the values in sites. So I know sites is holding some kind of variable that has multiple things in it, probably a list, but we can see. Okay, so for site in sites, it's going to print a message. We're using f strings, checking connectivity for site. And then from this requests library, it's doing something. It's saying requests.get site. So I'm not even sure what a site is at this point. It's not clear from the code up to this point. So it's storing that response, and it's checking if response. So that means if it got a response, like that site is active or available, it's going to print, it's going to access that settings dictionary, it's going to print the success message, whatever that message is. So that would be success exclamation point. If there was no response, it will print the failure messages. So failure. Okay. So I don't know exactly what it's doing. I've got to read a little bit further. I want to find the place where this check connectivity function is actually called. I see I've got this dunder method, the main method. So if somebody runs this program, here's where it's actually going to start doing some of its work. It's going to print welcome. Well, thank you for being so polite. And it's setting an answer variable to an empty string. Then we have a while loop. So while answer is not equal to x, so this is going to loop forever until that variable is updated with the letter x. So it's printing out some instructions. What would you like to do? It's printing the option. Do you want a 1 check for connectivity or x for exit? So then it's going to ask for that input. So there's where if the person running this program put an x, that would be stored. it would update this answer variable. But if they put a 1, what do they do? Okay, here's where I'm creating that sites variable. And I see here it is a list. So I'm assigning 3 strings to this sites. It's a list with 3 strings in it with the URL of Google, Microsoft, and Apple, including an Apple URL that does not exist. Here's where it's called check connectivity. It's passing sites. Okay, so I know sites is just a list of string URLs. Okay. So if I ran this code and I pressed 1, the code should loop through all of these sites and check to see if Google exists, if Microsoft, or that https://google.com exists. Same thing with Microsoft and Apple. It's going to check for those pages. And then after that run, so if we get to the end of this, so if they answer X, it'll break, then it'll exit the while loop. If they put something other than 1 or X, it'll print unknown option, and then it'll re-prompt them again. So I believe I know what this is doing, but maybe I want to dig in a little bit more. Like, what is the requests.get? So I might have to just open up a new tab and do some research. Python requests get. So that's helpful. The request.get method in Python is used to send a GET request to a specified URL. This method returns a response object that contains the server's response to the HTTP request. Okay, and I could follow up with the web pages, go to the official documentation to dig even deeper if I wanted to do some more investigation there. But a GET request, that's like getting a website. So it's good to know. Another thing you can do if you're using AI, throw this into one of the many artificial intelligence platforms and just say, what does this code do? Paste it in. And the AI systems are getting better at explaining what that code does line by line. All right, so I jumped ahead a little bit. I opened up a new browser window and I went to just ChatGPT and I said, what does this code do? It says, sure. I pasted the code and ChatGPT is going to walk me through that code line by line. So it imports the request library, which is used for making HTTP requests, explains to me the code. So this is good. This is an aid for me to help me understand this code if I'm not familiar with it. If it's a new programming language I haven't used before, or if it's using programming language features that I'm not yet familiar with, these AI tools are getting really good at reading and actually writing code. So it's a helpful tool that you can use. It's not a substitute for using your brain and thinking about the code and trying to step through it and manually analyze it, but it is a really good aid.